Hello, Geneva. I'm Mayor Kevin Burns, and this is Business Beat. Today we're joined by the Executive Director, and I believe fourth generation resident of Geneva, Terry Emma. Terry,
hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about Geneva. Everyone knows about what used to be called the History Center. Now it's a History Museum.
Correct.
Located on beautiful 3rd Street. And it's much more than just 10,000 square feet of stuff. What is the History Museum?
Well, the History Museum is a way for us to embrace Geneva's history. We help share it with programs, exhibitions, events. We do research. We're kind of an all-around, whatever a history museum is, we are. And we're very small, but we do a lot of services for the community.
Small but powerful.
Yes.
And I know for a fact that the second graders have a tour throughout the community. And they often go to City Hall and they go to other, quote, important places throughout the town. And those second graders talk about that throughout their educational career here in Geneva, which is fascinating.
They do, and they also get a pass to bring back their parents to the museum.
Okay.
So we get a lot of parents who come in and say, oh, my child was here last week, they loved it, so now we're here. So that's a great way to engage the rest of the community with the museum.
That's wonderful. Now, you and I were talking earlier, a lot of folks think the History Museum is part of the city.
Right.
And it's not.
It's not.
It's a standalone, separate, not-for-profit organization that relies on annual giving from its members, its friends, corporations, foundations, etc., to thrive.
Absolutely.
And thrive you do.
We do, and it's a struggle, but we're very proud. Most museums are either funneled with their park district or their city, and sometimes even their county. We are very proud that we remain independent. This is our 75th anniversary of being an independent organization. There are times that we struggle, and there are times that I worry, but I'm always proud of the fact that we're able to pull it all off, and the community seems to enjoy it, and they support us.
Well, philanthropy is alive and well.
It is.
And just over Terry's right shoulder is the donor wall, as it were.
Yeah.
So we're going to head over there and check out some of these august names. And this donor wall changes annually.
Yes, we actually update it almost monthly because everyone donates at a different time, but their donation is good for the whole year.
Cool.
And there's different levels. They get different things back for giving, and the more you give, of course, the more you get.
Right.
So this is a magnetic wall, and people can get their name on the wall with different books because Belong to Geneva's Story is our tagline.
Perfect.
And we want these people to feel like they belong, whether you've lived here in Geneva all your life or whether you've lived here for just a short time, you are part of Geneva's history.
Absolutely. And it should be noted that this piece that you're looking at was created in-house, built in-house, designed in-house, and installed in-house, which is really the ultimate recognition of how frugal and wise you are with the monies that you collect.
We are very small, like I said, and you'll find many times if you come in here, I'll have a drill in both hands because we build our own exhibits.
Not today.
We do, not today. Be careful if I did. But we do. Everyone here on the staff never says it's not my job description. Everyone jumps in, they build, we wear our IT hats, we wear our accounting hats, we wear our building hats, whatever it takes to get it done.
And how many volunteers do you rely on every year?
We have about 75 to 80 volunteers a year, putting in over 3,000 hours.
Is that right?
And every April we honor the volunteers with a dinner. Nice. This year I had a handwriting analysis magician come in because our exhibit currently is on communication. So the volunteers got treated to dinner and a fun night of...
And it's held here?
Yes.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
A lot of fun.
So we're going to take a tour of the entire museum, and we're going to see some very unique, perhaps some very new things.
Yes.
And we're going to take a look downstairs, which I think a lot of people have not been. You and I were there years ago when it was flooding, but that's all resolved.
Yes, thankfully.
I think while the exhibit is extraordinary, the downstairs I think is just the heart and soul of what a museum should be.
It is.
So folks, stick with us and we're going to begin the tour. Folks, we're getting ready to head into the exhibit space that changes twice a year.
Yes.
And now the topic is about communication.
Yes, it's called In Other Words.
In Other Words, right there on the wall. You can't miss it.
A history of Geneva's communication. So it's about mail delivery, the written word, the spoken word, the radio station that was here in town for a long time, the Geneva Republican.
WGSB? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so come on and I'll show you.
Now quickly though, check this out. Just donated to the History Museum. This is from the post office, 1950. Donated by a private citizen who was, quote, downsizing.
And her neighbor used to be the postman in Geneva, and he had it in his house when the post office didn't need it anymore.
Oh my gosh.
So now they brought it to us. So we get donations every week, which is great, but when I show you downstairs, someday we'll run out of room.
Well, because people don't know what to do and they want to give it to the museum because you'll take good care of it.
Yes. We are. Once we have it in our hands, we are in charge of perpetual care.
Awesome. Folks, we're in the heart of the exhibit room, which is entitled, In Other Words, about the history of communication in Geneva. And to my left, we're standing in front of what I think is one of the coolest pieces. This is the switchboard from the old Geneva Hotel. Now, in this space, there's all sorts of, not replica equipment, but original equipment that helps convey how the words, messages, communications were delivered throughout the ages. So tell us about some of these pieces, Terry.
Well, as you said, this is the switchboard from the Hotel Geneva, which was right on State Street, where it's now a music shop.
Right.
So we find it very interesting, too, that it has all the business cards and all the phone numbers still from the time when the phones would have to go through the switchboard from the hotel to make outgoing calls. We still have the headset, too, that they would wear, and this is how they would dial out, and that they'd have to connect the call through the wires. It's a very complicated system, but actually, they say that this would still work today if it was put back
Is that right?
in a working order, yes.
This is the one we have at City Hall, pretty much. That's fantastic. And of course, we're old enough to remember.
I'm not, you might be.
We're old enough to remember albums.
I still have albums. I have a turntable.
You still have albums, and they're coming back, folks.
Yes. But so this is how they would have to crank the crank, and they only get one song at a time. This one just had a cylinder that was wax, and it would go right over this. So you had to pay extra for the horn, but the horn is how the sound would come out. They would crank this so that it would needle would go across the cylinder, and like I said, one cylinder is one song. So every time a song was over, you'd have to get up out of your chair and go play another one.
It's like having TV with no remote.
Yes.
Now, do you recall who donated these pieces?
I do not recall offhand, but the museum does have paperwork for all of our items. So when someone comes in the door and donates something to us, we have them fill out paperwork. They tell us the provenance or the story. They also record who gave it to them and the date, and then they sign off on it. So then at that time, that property becomes part of the museum.
It becomes yours.
And then we're in charge of it forever.
Wow. That is so cool.
We get a lot of cool things.
Well, here's a question. From a museum standpoint, are there items that you have not accepted?
Yes, we're very picky now about what we accept. In the beginning, I think they just wanted to build a collection, so they took just about anything. And we're doing an inventory, I'll show you downstairs, of everything. It's going to take us probably another 3 to 5 years to finish. But we are actually matching everything with its paperwork, making sure we have the legal rights to have it.
Got it.
Making sure the story is documented into our database.
Accurately.
If it doesn't have a story, it's never going to make it into an exhibit, because what do I have to say about it?
And a lot of people just want to get rid of their junk.
Yeah, and we are not your place for junk. No.
Got that?
We do appreciate donations, but we are very, we make sure before it even comes to the front desk that it's from Geneva, it has a Geneva story, and that it also is in good shape. I don't want to take in something that is in really poor shape that might also present problems to what we have down there now.
Sure. It costs you all sorts of money to preserve.
Right, if it's full of bugs or mold or anything like that, we are also very cautious of that.
Now you said something about the product, the good, the what have you, has to be from Geneva. Can it be connected to Geneva?
Connected to, but still it has to have a strong connection, because if we start just taking everything, we're going to run out of room.
Yeah, no question about it.
And then we won't have room for the good stuff that we do have.
Awesome. Makes total sense, folks. Let's go. Continue. We've continued to the main gallery, folks, of the Geneva History Museum. And Terry and I were talking off camera. Many of you may recall this as having looked different several years ago. But because of some physical challenges, the entire space was redone. And all the language here was rewritten by Terry Emma, her mom Gloria Emma, and some of your team members.
Yes.
So this is really brand new to a lot of folks. So tell us about this whole new space.
It is, it's great. It's 3,000 square feet of gallery where we tell Geneva's story. So this is always going to be here. We switch it up, we change things out. It existed before when we moved to this location in 2004, it was built. But it told it in a timeline, and it kind of ended in 1950. Well, history didn't end in 1950. So what we did is we took everything down, we redesigned it. We wanted to make it colorful, because color did exist back in the day. We just don't see it through black and white and sepia photographs. But we added color, we added more artifacts, we added large imagery, and all the models you see were done by a volunteer, Dick Jager, who passed away several years ago. But they're all of buildings in Geneva that don't exist anymore. And he built these models based with images that we have in our collection.
The original courthouse? That's
one of the courthouses. Wow. The one right before the one across the street. That is, that burned down to the ground.
Wow.
And then we have Take Me to Geneva as another chapter is why people come to Geneva, why they still come to Geneva, not just in the 1800s, but why are people still driven to Geneva, and how they got here. It might have been the train, it might have been the Lincoln Highway, it might have been the river that attracted them. And we use social media to reach out to people to continue capturing stories on what makes Geneva so special.
So what's neat about not doing it linear timeline is I can walk in and choose whatever chapter I want.
Exactly.
I don't have to go in order per se.
People come to the door and they'll say, well, how long do you think it takes to go through? I said, it's up to you. We wrote this so you could literally walk through and just see what you want to see. Right. You could be out of here in 10 minutes. But I've had people come back here and they stay hour and a half because we have iPads with videos. We have stories that go pare down to longer stories. But we did it kind of in layers so that the visitor could be anybody who just has an interest or somebody who really wants to learn.
And the interactive is key.
Yes.
For all generations.
Yes, I think museums are leaning more toward entertainment, and I think they should, because not only is it history, but people are looking for entertainment, they're curious, they want to learn more, and they like hands-on.
Oh my gosh, no question about it. Now that picture right there, is that the Peck Farm?
Yes, it is, the barn, and the model is right there that Dick Jager did. Merino sheep were raised there by the Pecks, and that's actually Eagle Brook subdivision today between Fargo and Randall Road. And that was burned to the ground. It was a controlled burn by the fire department once the barn got so dilapidated. But they did raise prize-winning, award-winning merino sheep all around the world. I think they're kind of cute.
They are kind of cute. Mm-hmm. We allow dogs now, but what about sheep, Pete?
That stuff's bad.
Some of the corporate influence, as it were?
Yes, this area is called Made in Geneva. So this is anything that has been or still is being made here in town. Because obviously the river was a draw for industry in the early days. So that picture was the river back in the late early 1900s.
Wow.
And that was used for power. So there was smokestacks everywhere. They were using the river to dump, and was not a good clean time in town. But they made sad irons, which means heavy.
Yep.
You'll find those a lot in antique stores. Those were made right here in Geneva. But I love how the Howell company who made those irons, they were so smart. When electricity came in and the irons served no more purpose, instead of going out of business, they started making furniture. So they changed their business from irons to metal furniture. And a lot of the retro furniture you see that's popular again today was made by them.
Oh my gosh.
And then we go, we tell about old businesses, but we also go current with Horn Structural Steel, still on the east side of town. We still have Riverbank Labs making tuning forks.
Absolutely, Mr. Swanson.
Yes, and Flavors of North America up on the east side, we involved them because we wanted to tell not only what was here before, but what is still being made here in Geneva.
Fantastic.
And again, people can go on an iPad if they want to learn more. They can listen to interviews, they can watch videos, they can take a closer look at an artifact and learn more about it by engaging with the iPads.
Now, was this technology brought to bear through a grant?
This is part of this whole project back here was through the Jager Foundation. We got a grant from the Robinsons, and then I got matching donors to kick in the rest. So for $87,000 4 years ago, we were able to add all of these things. And because all the labor was free, it was all the staff and volunteers in here.
Oh, that's nice.
It's very nice.
Can you estimate how many folks have visited in those 4 years?
Well, I know annually we get about 10,000 visitors a year.
There you go.
And it's funny that we track zip codes.
And it's not from Geneva.
They're not from Geneva. Our donors and our members are Geneva residents, but our visitors are primarily tourists who are walking down 3rd Street. They're curious about the town. They just happen to be, they have a little extra time on their hands, they want to come in. But I hope the community will come in and learn their history, because people say, oh, I live in town, I don't need to come.
It's a challenge, isn't it?
It is.
As you hear regularly from restaurateurs, retailers, etc., it tends to be those who, outside of the community, tend to enjoy the community more regularly.
And I've lived here all my life.
Right.
And I learn stuff every day about Geneva's history. So just because you live here doesn't mean that you already know the history of the town.
God, you know just a fraction. Well, here's a question, and if you can't answer it, we'll just make it up.
Okay.
What is the average age of the visitor to the museum? Do you know that?
Yes,
you do.
We do. We track that as well, mostly through surveys. So if they don't do a survey, I won't know. But most people do, they hop on our iPad survey, it's real easy, and you get a discount in our gift shop if you do a survey. So it's primarily 50 years old and over, which is usually about right, because when you're busy parenting and you're with the PTAs and you're busy with your school things, and once the kids are grown and raised and now you've got more time and you start thinking about your own history and your own families, you start to engage more with a history museum.
Which makes sense as to why you are so involved in the school district.
Yes.
Because you engage and inspire these kids at a young age, who then hopefully will be inspired throughout their lives.
Right. And
irrespective of where they live.
And we try to develop it with the curriculum in mind. So we meet with the teachers and find out what they're teaching in school, so that what we're doing isn't just a total singular thing, but it integrates with what they're teaching in the classroom.
It's perfect. Perfect.
It is.
Let's continue, folks. Obviously a huge element of the success of the community here, the educational component?
Yeah, we decided to make a whole chapter on Geneva Schools because we are very rare, still having only one high school.
Right.
Our fight song is very rare. Most fight songs are adapted from a university fight song. Ours was written by students in the 1930s.
That's right.
We do have the football team singing it most recently on the iPad over there. It's kind of fun. We talk about Harry Coltrap and his legacy, and of course the sports that still attract people on Friday nights and throughout the year. We have Letterman sweaters as early as the 1903, and you'll notice there's Weldon Johnson's sweater from 1957. You still get the G, the blue and white, and it's been that tradition going on throughout the years. But then we also brought it more relevant to today's time, with Jenny Picorni there playing volleyball.
Oh, is that Jenny? That's awesome.
So we built all of this. This floor only had that portion, the black and white checks. So we added on, and then Jessica and I covered it with turf, and then we have turf from the football field today.
Oh, that's actually from the new field turf? Cool.
So we really tried to bring each chapter to today's time frame, so that someone who has only been here for a while can at least
Do visitors say to you and your team, I particularly love this chapter, or this chapter? Is there a most popular chapter?
Oh, that's hard to say. I think a lot of people really like this area here, which is our Fargo Theater. And what's fun about this is I worked with Chicago Scenic Studios that, again, they're entertainment industry and museums. They do Harpo Studios. They do a lot of, I think, Steve Harvey, but they also do museums. So when they came here and saw this big space we had, they said, you need something that is a wow factor. And so we talked about it a lot, and we wanted it to be a fluid space. So this is where museum visitors can go and hit a button on the wall, watch a 1-minute video of their choice on Geneva's history. It also has Apple TV, it has a DVD player, and it also has a computer. So I can remove these benches, I can create whatever kind of space, and we can show whatever we want on the screen. When our second graders come, they sit on the floor.
Do you broadcast city council meetings here?
We do not.
Okay.
We don't have cable.
You don't want to lose members either.
No. So. But I'll show you,
That's really a great space.
We created our own video for fun when we were rebranding the museum and changed our logo to the bright teal G with a quote mark. We made this video.
I'm Matt Littlewald live at the Harrington Inn and Spa reporting for GHM News, where we've heard all sorts of speculation and all sorts of stories about possible sightings of ghosts.
Oh yeah.
We're on the second floor of the hotel, and I'm with Brandon. Can you tell me about the stories we've been hearing? Ghost sightings. Is it true?
Yeah, we've been seeing some ghost sightings around here, actually. There's been a lady that's been up here on this floor, actually, that's been walking around looking like she's from the 1800s. She's dressed in a long dress and has a bonnet on.
That sounds a lot like the description of a woman named Charity Harrington, who had a log cabin on this exact spot in those mid-1800s. She's the mother of Geneva. Could it possibly be her?
Could explain a lot of things going on around here.
Could explain a whole lot. G. That's G. G. story, right?
That's fantastic.
We had fun with that.
And a Geneva kid doing it too. No
Yes,
less.
actually.
Good old Matt Rodewald.
Matt was thrilled to do it, and we
bet.
thought it'd be fun to see if what Charity would say today if she came back to Geneva.
So it was edited because she wouldn't say G. Now, where Matt was located is downstairs in the archive room.
Yes.
We're going to head down there, folks. Stick
go.
with us. Folks, we're downstairs in the archive room of the Geneva History Museum. And it feels very much like a basement, but this is almost the heart and soul of what you're all about.
It is. I wish I could bring everybody in the community down here, or I wish I could put a glass floor upstairs so
gosh,
everybody
yeah.
could see. Because without this basement, we don't exist. This is where everything is.
And all the stories that you talk about, tell your story, join Geneva's story, this is the genesis of every story.
It is.
And you verify them, you make sure they're accurate. So who's allowed down here?
People are allowed by appointment. They have to be with a staff member down here, because we can't just let anybody thumb through a book from the 1800s.
Right, right.
So they do have to have a volunteer who's been trained or a staff member with them at all times by appointment. But all of this is a resource for the community, just like the library.
Well, that's
is.
important to note.
It is.
Okay. So if I'm studying the history of whatever family or whatever business, this is a great spot to come, if not first, certainly at some point in that research.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The people from the library come here to do research.
Is that right?
Yes, and the city comes and does research.
Mr. Lambert, all the time.
Yeah, he's here weekly right now doing a project. So we are a great resource for the community, whether it be about families, business, anything Geneva. We are here to help.
Okay, here's a question, a loaded question. There's some cool stuff in here. What's your favorite?
Oh, my favorite down here, I think, is the ledger from the Harringtons' log cabin. We actually have their ledger.
Oh, wow.
It's a book.
Visitors?
Yeah, of transactions, sales.
Oh.
So you'll have people's names and how much they bought their jar of peanut butter or whatever for.
Really?
Yeah. So that is my favorite because it's from 1835, and we also have his ledger from Pennsylvania when they had a store before that even.
Okay.
To me, I just think that that is the highlight of what we have down here in the archives.
Are there names in that ledger that we would all know? Because they're either streets or what have you?
Dodson,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Alexander. I mean, any kind of Geneva name from the history would be in that book.
That's amazing. That's
It
so
is.
cool.
I think that's very cool. But I find cool stuff every day. We found a signed letter from Frank Lloyd Wright. We didn't even know we had it. So since we started in 1943 by volunteers with no computers, and they were just kind of collecting things in their own homes before there was a museum, by the time everything comes together, some of these stories and some of the documents may have been lost as to verifying things.
Absolutely.
We were doing research on something totally different, and we happened to open a box, and Gail, my museum technician, said, "Oh my gosh, I just found a letter. It's a original letter."
You had never opened that box before?
We had opened it, but I can show you.
But you never just saw that?
Yeah, I mean, there are thousands of documents in each box, so she happened to be looking for something, pulled it out, and it is a letter to the Geneva Library Board. They asked him if he would do an edition. And he writes back and kind of says, well, you probably can't afford me. And of course, then we were curious, did he ever do anything? And we can't find any documentation that he ever did. But we have his original signature on a piece of paper written to a Geneva resident who was the president of the board at the time.
And of course, there's a lot of students of Frank Lloyd Wright who built a lot of things here in town.
Yes, the Wilson brothers
the
in
Wilson
particular.
Brothers, City Hall, for example. Oh my gosh, that's wild.
So it's funny how we'll be researching something totally different and we'll find a surprise. And we call it a rabbit hole. We're always going down different rabbit holes, and then pretty soon you spend an hour on that one, and now you haven't finished what you're doing before.
So here's a weird question. You find this letter, it's obviously very important, very valuable. What do you do differently with that letter that you would with just any other letter?
Well, all of our stuff is treated the same, whether it be Frank Lloyd Wright letter or a letter from you. We put everything in plastic sleeves. It is all filed.
Acid-free, all that good stuff.
Yes.
And so it's stored forever.
And I can show you one of our boxes. It's pretty cool. But there's a cost to all of that. So,
of course,
archival safe boxes, all the storage materials we need. There's a huge cost to all of that. But that's our job. That's what we do here. But we look for the communities to support us so we can take good care of all of these.
So part of that $300,000 annual budget is stuff that most people would think as just almost stuff. But it's essential to keeping that story alive.
It is.
Wow.
We have to keep this temperature right. We document the humidity levels, the temperature levels in this building once a week.
Really?
We keep a chart of that. We have to make sure that our environment is correct for all to take care of everything.
Things don't decompose and Folks, we're in the, this is still the archive space.
Yes, this is called the collections.
This is the collection. So we came through a door and then we opened up to literally the history of this community. I mean, this room is enormous. And it's not unlike many people's attics or garages, but there's a method to this madness in here, isn't there?
There is. There's a great method. And for one thing, we don't touch anything with our bare hands.
Okay.
We always wear gloves. So yeah, keep your hands.
There we go.
We are doing an inventory. So we have over 30,000 items that we have in our database that says is back here. Again, we are taking each item one by one. Volunteers are helping us. We take one item at a time. We look for the paperwork that we should have for it. Everything has a number on it. It's got a tag of some kind. And in a good world, you would take that number, put it into the our database, and it would pop up with who gave it to us, what its provenance is, and where it came from, and the date that they gave it to us. So then they're going in the database, in our electronic database, and they're updating that with all the information to make sure that we know that this is a table from.
Do you also take each piece and place it and then take a picture?
Yes,
you do.
In the other room, we put its number underneath it so that the picture then goes with the electronic file.
So we were talking earlier about digitizing some of this material that's around, that God forbid some natural disaster occurs, it's gone forever.
Yes.
So to digitize this, you need a large format scanner.
That would be ideal. I'd actually need two. I need a large format and I need an overhead scanner.
Got that? Large format, overhead scanner. You're looking at just a few $1,000 here and there. So, folks, if you're tuning in, if you know somebody's interested in making a donation, tax write-off.
Yes, it is. We're a 501c3 organization.
Absolutely. So keep that in mind. Awesome.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun down here. Like I said, we still find stuff down here too.
Look, Pete, you're from your childhood.
Now here, we don't have a story on that one, unfortunately. This is the Hotel Geneva cash register, which kind of went along with that switchboard you saw upstairs.
Ah. Okay, why do you have to wear gloves?
Because you don't want the oils from your hands and things to go on to the item. So we do have gloves that we have our volunteers, we train them. All of our volunteers need to know handling. You don't just walk around with a glass in your hand.
Right.
You use a cart. You know, God forbid you dropped the glass.
Yeah.
So there are procedures, and we have procedures all written down, and they go through a training process in order to work down here.
And who trains the volunteers?
Jessica, our curator.
Got it.
And then sometimes we can have a volunteer train volunteers if they've been with us long enough and we feel that they're at that point where they could train others. Yes, it's a lot of interesting stuff. You'll see it's all draped so that these things should be cleaned periodically too, dusted. But right now, you can't even get back there if you want to.
No, you can't. It's like, this is like shopping in almost an antique store kind of thing.
Well, and we say it's like playing Tetris. This table was on display last year at this time, and it was way back there on top, underneath something else. So to get to that table took us most of the day.
Is it too corny to say that despite it being so quiet down here, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the stories of each item?
Absolutely. I feel that way.
Absolutely, that's corny.
It is corny, but I do feel that way because I'll be touching something that belonged to Forrest Christie, great author here in Geneva, and you start to feel like you want to learn more about them. You want to know, what did they do with this? What was this their favorite thing? This safe over here, you know,
this is
Sergio's Cantina.
Yeah. This
was the safe from Gus Schutt's saloon, which was there at the time, and he actually got held up. And the robber took the money out of the safe. This was the safe that was used.
You're kidding.
No, and he got held up in his own place.
Now, why wouldn't someone display that in their business as kind of a, hey, check this out, because it means more to be given here, because the real story can be told, or is it just a matter of, I want this stuff out of my place? Well,
no, I think here we can put that item into action for us. This could be on a display when we do one on taverns again.
Okay.
This also can be used for the community to learn more. Like if the family from Gus Schutz came in to do research on him, we could say, well, we have his safe, and tell them that story. So it's used for their educational purposes. So to us, it would mean more here because it's more available and accessible to others, where if it's in your attic, where it shouldn't be anyway because it's hot and it's going to decay. This room is climate controlled. You can notice it got a little chillier down here.
Yes, absolutely.
But we'd keep the climate at a certain level, and the humidities too. And we also know how to store things. So you don't just put things on a shelf. You use Epifoam to keep the two, if these two substances were ever to interact, there might be some kind of a chemical spin-off of it. They could rust. So everything is layered. Everything is done appropriately and numbered, lettered.
Like goes on forever.
We're going to do an art exhibit next year, so we just inventoried all of our art, and we did find some very cool works of art. One of them is almost like a Norman Rockwell. This artist did the covers to American Scientific, and we have the original artwork from a 1926, I believe, issue.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't have my gloves, so I can't grab it.
Wow. But the foam board, that's just used to separate.
Yes, to protect so they're not leaning up against each other, but then we also use it as a filing system to be able to find whatever picture you're looking for from the side.
Wow.
And again, here's another problem we have. This whole room should be redesigned. So these things should not be sitting open like this. They should be in boxes, properly packaged, so that we could double or triple our space as well as protect them. These shelves should be on wheels so that
so you can
lockable
slide.
wheels.
Yep.
If I wanted to get at these chairs, I'd have more room if I could push this back and get at things. But all that comes at a cost that we just don't have in our annual budget.
Wow.
So I'm actually developing a program of naming rights here at the museum.
Oh yeah.
So that will help bring in some funds, and this could be the Burns Collection Room.
Imagine that. And I could be stored down here someday.
There's no room for you.
There's no room. In the world of museums, is there a time that arrives and you say, we simply can't keep it all? What do you do?
Well, through the inventory process that we're doing right now, we're having the volunteers flag items that either don't have a provenance or have nothing to do with Geneva that we can tell right now. It takes a long time, but after we do more research to make sure that that is indeed true, a list of items would be given to our board of directors, and they'd vote on whether or not they approve their DIA accessioning.
Got it. Okay.
You can't just sell these things on eBay and then make money for the museum. That's a big no-no. So there's a long process that you have to do through a museum basic.
Almost like best practices.
Yes, best practice.
Because you're a certified museum.
We are.
Yeah.
And we're actually
which is unusual because of how small you are.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
We actually just won 2 state awards that I'm going down to Springfield to accept in October.
Oh my gosh.
We won an award for our architecture exhibit, and we won our award for being Platinum 75th anniversary.
Well, there you go.
So we, as a small museum, we are really making great headlines and great headways, and we're getting recognized for it, which I think is awesome.
And well deserved. So this room is where pieces are brought in, inspected, identified, cataloged, and then sadly returned to that room, otherwise returned to a display.
Right.
Okay.
We always call it shopping. We're going shopping. So when we're creating an exhibit, we first want to make sure, do we have enough stuff to display?
True.
So we may come up with a really cool idea, but what do we have from the collection that's going to represent that? So sometimes we cannot choose an exhibit that we want to do because we didn't have anything to show. Like we wanted to do one on 1968 because it's been 50 years.
50 years, my gosh.
So in our minds, we had this great design developed of what was going on in the world in 1968 and how Geneva, what was happening in Geneva.
Wow.
We didn't have enough from our collection to show from the 60s.
And you wouldn't borrow stuff from anyone else's collection, would you?
Yes.
You do, okay.
We borrow from other museums, we borrow from individuals, and we call it a loan agreement.
Okay.
And so it's all legally written up for how long we'll have it.
Interesting.
Insurance is taken care of and all of that. So we do that as well.
Kind of like a traveling troupe, if you will.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we also bring in traveling exhibits from all over the place.
Wow.
This summer we had a children's exhibit from Minnesota Children's Museum.
Was that the, didn't you have a, not Lincoln Log, but
we did Building Geneva.
Building, yeah.
That was one that we made, and we just won an award for it.
It is, okay, got it.
Yes, so we might bring that back next summer, because now we can say it's an award-winning
plus
exhibit.
the kids love it.
They did. And we created that all ourselves. We built it. We came up with the ideas with some retired teachers.
So here's the question, and this is for consumption by all tuning in, and it's similar to what Mr. Rodewald said. Is this place haunted?
I think it is. I'm here alone a lot, sometimes in the evening, and there are weird creaks and pops.
I can imagine.
And it kind of gives you that eerie feeling because you're around all this stuff that has been here for a long time. So you start to, and when you start researching families, you really start to get into all of their business. Ooh. And then you really start to feel like there is a presence here, definitely. I know there is. From the Wheeler family, from the Harringtons.
Good and bad?
I haven't seen anything bad, thank goodness.
Good. That's good.
In my head, I'm thinking it's all good.
I can imagine, yeah. No kidding.
I'm hoping it's all good.
Wow.
We do ghost walks too. And this
I know.
town is very haunted.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
We're back to the main floor of the museum, and this is the gift shop, folks. So after a tour, or even before a tour, or even if you don't want to do a tour, you can come in here and check out all the good items that the History Museum has to offer to not only help you remember, but perhaps share with others memories of this beautiful community. And this is a great space. Everything always changes here.
It does. We try to keep it fresh and bring in new merchandise, and it's all about Geneva.
It's all about Geneva. Well, thanks again, Terry, for the extraordinary tour. And I think even I obviously learned a heck of a lot. We have the gift shop, and outside this van has been parked here for a while. What's this all about?
Well, once a month we rent a van and we can fit 13 people at a time.
Awesome.
We go on a historic tour of Geneva, about 45 minutes, and afterward they can have lunch at Little Traveler, or they, they also get a goodie bag with lots of coupons from Geneva businesses that help sponsor the tours.
Wow.
I can also take people anytime they want if they get a group of 6 or more together and they want to learn about Geneva's
Just call
history.
the museum and say, we'd love to have a cook's tour of this town.
And I actually have 5 different routes, so you can come back 5 different times.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. We also do walking tours and bike tours through Millrace Cyclery.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Bruce takes care of you?
Yeah, he sure does.
Life is good, man. So tell us where you're located, your website, phone number, hours of operation, and all that good stuff.
Well, we're right here in the heart of town on 3rd Street at 113 South 3rd Street, open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 4. We also have special events late at night sometimes, so stop by. And our website is genevahistorymuseum.org or 630-232-4951.
That's easy. That's wonderful. And it's not premature to say happy 75th anniversary to the Geneva History Museum.
Thank you.
Which takes place soon, and you'll see a lot about that. So thanks again for having us.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks for coming. Thanks.
Thanks, Geneva.